Hi and welcome to this online webinar. Anthony Semann here. I'm really pleased to be delivering this for you at Only About Children. This webinar is about time management. It's more about strategy than it is about a dream. And in this session, we'll be exploring a range of issues that are really relevant to you, regardless of your role, whether you're a centre director, whether you're a room leader, educational leader, or educator in a classroom. I'm sure there'll be something in this session that will speak to you. So, let's think about what we're going to be engaging with during this online module. We're going to be talking about how you manage your flow, what it means to you in your role, and what it looks like. Furthermore, we'll be exploring things around priority management versus time management. We'll bust that myth around time management and we'll be looking at what it means to work with priorities. In addition, how do we respond to the unexpected, those things that come our way that were never planned for? And how to learn to delegate. Regardless of your role, there are people you work with. How do we share that load? And finally, it might be a crisis, but we don't need to go into a crisis, and we'll explore what that means. However, let's just think about this. Whether you're an educator in the room, or someone in a leadership role, not working with children, our days are pretty well planned. So an educator in a room has a schedule of routines they need to attend to, a timetable, their lunch breaks and morning tea breaks, when they start and when they finish. Centre managers. Much of your work is consumed attending to daily things like phone calls, responding to the needs of families, responding to the needs of staff, and attending to quality. We all do things that help us map our way through our roles. We schedule things and we try to prioritise those. The reality is things get in the way, and we need to learn how to manage that. So, in the course of this webinar, I'll be helping you figure out how to be productive. So let's begin with discussing this idea of managing your flow. Workflow is a process of just getting stuff done, and it's really important that we get stuff done. You know, most of us like to feel productive. We like to leave our day feeling like we have not just been consumed with doing things, but we've produced great things. And the purpose of any work environment is to support people to get work done to a high quality, but to support each other. As such, working as a team plays a really critical part in this process. When we talk about managing your time, we're also talking about managing each other's time, working together as a team, supporting each other, knowing when, as Salas calls it, needing to give each other backup behaviour. That is, supporting your team members with the resources, your skills, your energy, and your advice to help them get through their day. Now, efficient work practices can keep us focused. They help us communicate with each other really effectively. And just a word about that, we need to keep on communicating, particularly when we're feeling stressed. We don't just communicate when we're feeling great. It helps us streamline what we're doing, and we get to do things regularly and more effectively, and allows us to deal with the things that actually matter. There are many systems in a workplace that help us to manage our time effectively. And part of that means everybody knows what their role is. Everybody plays their part in the workplace. Now, this doesn't mean we work in silos. It means we work in collaboration with each other. We also need to know where our contribution fits into the big scheme of what happens in any workplace. And so you might want to think about this question. Do I have absolute clarity on what my job is and how it should be done and the quality of which it should be completed? In addition, it requires goal setting. Short term, medium term, and long term. See, the great thing about setting goals is when we achieve them within the time frame and the quality required, We feel really great about ourselves. They give us these micro moments of celebration, but also big moments of celebrating as a team that we've achieved something. For example, managing our time and our resources really well to get a great outcome through assessment and rating is something we'll all celebrate. And furthermore, we have feedback loops that are respectful but give each other feedback to help us support each other and ourselves do our jobs more effectively. So I want you to pause for a moment, and you might pause the video or you might just think for a moment as I raise these questions with you. Think about your typical day. What stresses you through your day? And as you think about that, break down those experiences and those things that stress you, and is there something in common there? And what are the top 3 things about managing your workflow that could be a difficulty that you encounter? So keep in mind that we all have different roles. The responses from those working with children, those perhaps working in the kitchen, or those working in the office will be different. Pause for a moment. Think about those barriers, and you may, in fact, if you are watching this with colleagues or one of your other colleagues has watched this, is to share your notes about what your response is around this question. So let's now discuss this concept of mental junk mail. You might be asking, what has this got to do with time management? Well, I hope you get clarity around this. See, most of us are distracted. Actually, we're trapped by our minds, and there's a lot of thinking that we do that we think is absolutely necessary and useful for us to get our job done. But actually, that's not true. Rather, we spend a large portion of our day actually walking and working with these scripts going through our head, and they consume us. And those scripts do anything but make us productive. That's what I call junk mail. Those scripts may be things like, I'm so overwhelmed, I have so much to do, I'm not very good at my job, I can't manage small groups, wow, I just always feel like I'm falling behind. Now, these things, although may help move us forward, because they might give us that little critical edge that we need, but if they consume us, this junk mail can actually lead to sinking thinking. And while there may be some use in reflecting or helping guide our work, what they can do, this junk mail, is stop us from really focusing on getting the job done. It becomes this subliminal script that puts you on edge, where you're not focusing. And you know what happens when we don't focus? We don't give the energy and the time that we need to complete something. Therefore, a task that could have taken 10 or 15 minutes to complete may in fact take an hour. Think about it. If you're an educator in a room and you've got planning time, curriculum development time, or perhaps you're engaging in summative assessments, when we are focused, we could probably get through a significant amount of that work in a decent amount of time. But if I've got junk mail, if there are scripts running through my head, if I'm being distracted, we can probably guarantee it might take 2, 3, or sometimes 4 times as long. And so, say some of those sinking scripts that kind of go through our head are things like, I'm always out of time, I'm always chasing myself, why? I must be doing a bad job. Or, it's all too much, it's my fault that I didn't actually complete that project on time, or I should have done it differently. These don't actually help us. This becomes what we call a polluted mind. Now, can you think of a time where your body was there, but your head was somewhere else? Whether you're in the office doing a task, or you're in the kitchen cooking, or you're an educator in the classroom. My body is here, but my mind is elsewhere. This polluted mind leads to excessive thinking. Again, not helpful. Doesn't make us productive. We know those people who are really good at kicking some great goals in a good period of time, that is the time allocated, are really focused on getting the job done. And now this excessive thinking tends to confuse excessive or overthinking with problem solving. And the problem there is when we are in this way of thinking, excessive thinking, the polluted mind, we fail to notice what's going on around us. We fail to realize the distractions. We don't come to realize what it means to focus and get the job done. And we get so attached to our own solutions, we find it really hard to open up and seek feedback from our colleagues. And this is where mindfulness might be really useful. Some people confuse mindfulness with yoga, for example. And yes, yoga can be a way that helps you become mindful. But it's something you need to consider about what works for you. What mindfulness does means I'm right here, right now, and I'm in the moment. It also means at a basic level, I'm less stressed, I'm more vividly awake, I can cope with my workload. And because I can cope with my workload, small distractions or sometimes big distractions that come my way don't allow me to fall apart. I know how to deal with those. But the other thing it does, it helps us screen information and demands. We are able to prioritize those things that are urgent based on our needs and the needs of the business, not necessarily the needs of others, who it may be urgent but may not be important. The other thing it does, it knows where we need to put our influence. And that is about how we place our work and our values together. So we are practicing what we preach, and we are absolutely focused in delivering what we say we are going to deliver. In addition, we're more in the moment and we're less driven and we're less exhausted by lower order demands. You know, sometimes when we're stressed, I understand that there is a level of escapism that we might be drawn towards to attend to those things that may not take as much energy or a lot of concentration. And that's okay sometimes. But when we're mindful, we know where our energy and our concentration should go right here, right now. We're more connected. We're more present around people. And a team that is present knows how to produce great outcomes, but also knows what they need to deal with. There's also a sense of self-awareness, and self-awareness is really critical to actually being able to manage your time. I'll give you an example. If I know that I procrastinate when I'm tired, and I'm aware of that, I might put things into place. If I realise that my energy levels start to dip at a particular time of the day, because I'm self-aware, then I'll know how to schedule particular tasks to do at that time. And then what we also do is we lead or we work with our colleagues, like our colleagues in our classrooms, with a sense of joy and aliveness. Now, what we know around mindfulness is that it's about purpose, it's about results, it's also about alignment and discovery. When we are more mindful, I can guarantee we're better at getting our job done. So how does mindfulness develop focus, clarity, and creativity? I just want to read something to you by Dr. Joe Flanders, founder of Mindspace. And he says, mindfulness means non-judgment. It's moment-to-moment awareness. Now you can read most of these, but I'll just refer to some of this. When we're busy, we're distracted by multiple demands and we only give some attention to some things. What it means is we can step out of this really busy mind and attend creatively and flexibly to the things around us. What we're doing is in order to respond rather than react. Are we responding to things or are we reacting? I invite you all to reconnect with your snail. Let's not confuse being mindful, slowing down, with not being productive. Reconnecting with our snail means we are forever present in what we do, and we're present about the quality. So we need to get real and get present. It was Amanda Sinclair who said, "Take off your armor and let the world see you for who you are." Now, if we think about this from a time management perspective, none of us, regardless of our roles, can be corrective heroes. None of us, and we shouldn't expect that from people. A great team knows when to reach out, when to ask for help, but they also know when to support others. If we notice, for example, our colleagues are struggling with a task, they're stuck, or don't know how to find a solution, we step in, or when we're present and we're real, we can ask for help. See, great minds put around a particular problem can solve it a lot quicker. No one needs to suffer on their own by pretending they know how to do something. So mindfulness is about a couple of things. Relaxing your mind and being clear. When I'm clear, I know what I'm doing and I'm really focused on it. This is about stability, attentional stability. Here's a fun or maybe an interesting fact. Most adults can only concentrate for 3 to 7 seconds with stable attention. We're so distracted by the things around us. You know, when we are focusing, we try to limit those distractions. So ask yourself, what distracts you? For example, again, if you're doing curriculum development and you happen to have your phone with you, it might be wise to put it away so you can actually focus. If you're, for example, in the office trying to attend to a really important task, it may in fact mean shutting down your email system for 20 minutes so those pings that tend to come across every 5 minutes or so don't distract you, so you can actually attend to that task. And it is about vividness, being awake and being energized. So what can we do? Learn to pause, learn to relax, learn to open up, learn to actually ask people to help you if you need that. Listen deeply, that's about being receptive, and learn to speak the truth. For example, if you have something due at a particular point in time and you're struggling, reach out. You don't want to tell your colleague or your supervisor that something's going to be late on the day that it's due. That's never helpful. And so when we work with integrity and care, we can actually speak the truth. So let's explore this idea of priority management versus time management. And I understand that many people are attracted to this idea of time management. Here's the thing. In this webinar, there's not much I can do to extend this time beyond what we know as 60 minutes. It's like if you're watching this at 11 a.m., you can't make 11:30 be any later than 30 minutes down the track. We actually can't manage time. And you might be saying, well, you're just playing with words. And indeed I am. But words are really powerful in framing how we think. If we shift from time management to priority management, then things can look really different. We can manage our priorities. We can come to realize what we should be doing at any particular time because that's the priority. Whether it's attending to a child who's hurt themselves over reading a story that we had planned, whether it's completing a report that's due to head office in the next 10 minutes, they're going to get a cup of tea. Our priorities should be the thing that we're clear about. Now, this is about planning, scheduling, and prioritizing. And all three constructs, all three things are really important. Why? Well, number one, it impacts on our works and our career. Why? Because we feel like we have more capacity and we're more productive. In addition, you know, when you can schedule things in, when you can plan for things, the unexpected aside, actually it reduces our stress. We feel more competent and more capable. It helps us manage ourselves, our classrooms and our centres and our workload more effectively. In addition, it supports you to support your colleagues. When we plan time to be together, when we schedule time, and when we prioritise people who need us, then we actually are a more effective team. And finally, it helps you with a balance. Now we can talk about work-life balance, or we can talk about in my classroom, out of my classroom balance. So those tasks that I attend to while I'm with children, and perhaps some of those other tasks that we attend to during planning time. So here's an activity, and again, you might want to pause this in a moment to think about this. What factors have an impact on how you plan, how you schedule, and how you prioritise? Think about a process that you're currently using. Do you favour one over the other? Is there a process you're using that doesn't work? But here's the thing. You can't compare yourself to other people. I'm an absolute fan of scheduling things in my online calendar with a little 10-minute alert. Now, this may not work for other people, but it does work for me. I have colleagues who prefer things written down on a paper, on display. Know what works for you, because you have spent time figuring out how you work best. And do you think we all have different planning styles or styles that work? Or are there things that we share in a similar way with your colleagues? So there are many examples of how we might prioritise things. So you might make a list. You might schedule that list around, here are the phone calls I need to make, here are the tasks I need to attend to with families. Or if you're working with a group of children, here are the educational summaries I need to complete by this week. Here are the reflections I need to do by this month. And here are the resources and the projects I need to attend to today or tomorrow. Whatever works for you is what works for you. But there is something said about planning ahead. I know when I was a centre director, for example, I would always plan my tomorrow today. And what do I mean by that? So come the end of the day, I would spend some time actually setting my table, getting it ready for the next day. I would have my to-do list. And on that to-do list were the tasks I had on the to-do list from today that I didn't finish. And I would prioritise those. I also knew what chunks of the day I needed to be available for staff, for families, and when I need to be available for myself. Now that process worked for me. I wanted to walk in to the next day with everything organised. Now you might think about this, for example, about what it means for you to prioritise your work and to be organised. So we need to schedule things, but we need to be flexible. So we might think about, for example, creating a plan of action. What are we going to do? Make use of an organisational tool. How can I plan for it? Build it around priorities, like what is the most important thing for me to do at that particular point in time? And keep things flexible. You know, I was recently talking to a director who said to me this. Someone had attended a webinar and it had finished at 11 a.m. and she was in the classroom replacing them. And she was thinking at 11:30, where are they? This finished half an hour ago. What she hadn't planned was that actually at the end of the webinar, the staff who were watching this felt it really necessary to come together and share their thinking, because they found that if they just left the webinar and went straight into their classroom, they didn't talk about how could this have an impact on my work and what learning might we take away from this. So as a director, in her email to me, she said, now I've learned I need to schedule an extra half an hour and allow staff half an hour after each learning to actually take that learning into a conversation with their colleagues, because that's what makes a difference. Now, there are a couple of quadrants here about prioritising, and this is key. You'll see this on your screen. Top, left-hand corner. important, but not urgent. Now, isn't that a great thing? That we're addressing things that are important, but they're not yet urgent because we haven't left them for the last minute. The second quadrant, it's urgent and it's important. We've left it a bit long and it is urgent, or something really urgent has come up and it is important and I need to address it. Now let's go down the bottom to the left-hand side, and that says it's neither urgent nor important. That can just sit there. The far right down the bottom is it's urgent but not important. Now this is interesting. We don't want to spend too much time dealing with urgent things that actually aren't important. An example for you. Your colleague has just come back from her honeymoon or his honeymoon and they got photos and it seems so urgent to them to show you this, but it's not important. Do you stop what you're doing even though it has a deadline to look at that because you're trying to be nice? Now, don't get me wrong, nice is important. But am I going to turn to my supervisor and say, hey, sorry, I'm late with that. I was looking at wedding photos. See, we need to know how to prioritize this. I would actually say that person's urgency, as nice as it is to connect over their photos, should go down the bottom left in my mind. It's neither urgent nor important right now, but I will say to them, hey, I'm really excited to see that. Can I just attend to this task and maybe we can look at those photos over lunch? What tasks in your workplace do you know fit in each of these quadrants? And are there things that become urgent and important that you might attend to while they're important and not urgent? So further thoughts on this particular approach. The interesting thing about addressing this is that we need to adopt this method of prioritizing to take into consideration the agendas of other people compared to what's just important to me. And I think it's really important here that we look at the tasks that need to be done. Of course, we need to think more broadly about the agenda of our team members. We don't want to slip into a situation where it's just about me and my needs. We work in teams, and the needs of our teams are equally as important as the needs of us. A great team pulls weight and supports each other. Taking your priorities and creating an action plan. Once you've worked out the order of the things that need to be done, it's time to consider this. How long will it take to complete that? How long shall I schedule? And whether it's realistic to achieve all that in a day, in a week, or in that timeline. Don't overload yourself. Sometimes we want to be superheroes and try to get through everything. The reality is, you know the pace by which you work, and you need to realize that in achieving your goals. And finally, what are the external factors that you might need to take into consideration to complete the task? Because there are things that actually interrupt us, and we need to make time to respond to those. So here are some tips for scheduling. Overestimate how long it will take to do something. Why? Isn't it great to be surprised that you have some time up your sleeves at the end of the day? Secondly, don't overbook yourself, don't overschedule yourself. Also plan for interruptions and the unexpected, regardless of what role you're in, but particularly when something is due at a particular time. Keep things in perspective. Your schedules should help, not hinder you. And you don't want to create a situation where you feel so overwhelmed. Again, reach out to someone like your supervisor. If something needs doing and you know you cannot complete it in that time, speak up. Speak up as soon as you can, because together you can find a solution. Find a format that works for you, but again, be flexible. Try things out. You'll be surprised how some things we don't expect will work will be really useful. Be ready to let go of something, particularly if it's not helpful for you. Don't be stubborn and be stuck in a particular way. Be prepared to refocus and reschedule when you need to. The world won't end. We all have things that we want to achieve at a particular time, and if we don't get it done, just reschedule it. And finally, understand your best time of day to do what you need to do. Be real with yourself. Actually create a routine that is workable, and you take charge of your time and your schedule with the parameters of your campus, like work routines, and check in with your supervisor if you need to. Be real with others. Agree to timelines and schedules that support your team and their ability to actually deliver. Remember the time frames and agree to that. Being really clear about time frames helps everyone. Don't just agree to doing something and walk away without saying, when do you need this by? And at that point in time, if you need support, you ask for it. Take actions that are based on those agreements and those priorities. Manage individual priorities in relation to those agreements as a team. And realise when there are time wasters and try to eliminate them. And we all have different time wasters. You know, for some people, they spend so much time thinking about doing the task that if they spent that time doing the task, it would be done. But they don't, they just keep on ruminating and going over and over and over. And celebrate your success, whether small, no matter how big. It's really useful that as a team and an individual we do that. But also celebrate your colleagues. Pat them on the back when they do something on time and it's of great quality. So let's now talk about responding to the unexpected. What gets in the way? You know, there are a range of things that get in our way for doing our work. It's just called being part of a workplace. You know, external factors might be phone calls, unscheduled meetings, parents or staff wanting to talk to you, or other urgent matters that, you know, we hadn't planned for. There may be some internal factors that might actually get in our way and we have to respond to them. Those unexpected things could include illness of your colleagues, being tired. You know, maybe it's about us procrastinating when we shouldn't be, our inability to actually develop new habits or a level of dissatisfaction. What's really important for us is to deal with these interruptions. We don't want to get caught up in the drama of it. We don't want to necessarily overthink them. What we do want to know is when an interruption or the unexpected comes our way, how do we actually work through this? You know, life is full of many crises and many things that actually we didn't expect. There are those of us who know how to work through them productively, kick some goals, learn to stay calm, to manage our stress, and to come out the other way. And unfortunately, there are some who get caught up in it, ruminate over them, worry about them too much, and don't move forward. The goal here is for us to figure out how we work through this in a really positive way. So I'm here to share some ideas with you. See, for directors and managers, try to carve out times where you plan for not being interrupted, the uninterruptible moments. You know, having an open door policy doesn't mean I'm always available. It means open communication. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I need some me time right now or this afternoon so I can attend to this really important task. And for all of us in the team, we need to respect that. But we also need to be able to articulate that. For example, if you have a room where you're planning as an educator, to actually say to your colleagues, hey, I'm really trying to get through this task or finishing off writing these assessment tasks for children or this piece of documentation or this communication to families. I'd really prefer if I'm not interrupted. Identify the best time to complete a task. Our energy flow differs from the morning to the afternoon, from a Monday to a Friday. Knowing the best time to complete things is about your energy and when you're best at focusing. Find a place that suits your thinking. Like, if completing something means the best time to do it is when your colleagues are at lunch and the children are sleeping, then you might decide the best place to do it is sitting outside because there's less distraction. It's really important that we agree to protocols or guidelines around working with children and not interrupting our colleagues. It's actually called respect. You know, children have the right not to be interrupted as much as anyone else in your space. Remember, we are an education site and education is really critical. So think about it. When you're walking past a fellow colleague and they're totally immersed working with children, How do we stop ourselves from interrupting them? There's this great saying, if you want children to belong, you need to let them be for a long time. So, stop yourself from interrupting your colleague if they're teaching and ask yourself, what really is the priority? And consider children as being part of this team. And inform other people about your workload and your availability. People can't read your mind. They don't know what you have and when it needs to be done. A great team can talk through this. So I want to talk about dealing with these Mary Poppins, and you might have chuckled just then, but this does actually occur. It's when someone pops in when you're focused and you're trying to do something and you really need to attend to it. If it's urgent, be brave enough and ask them how many minutes it's going to take and stick to it. Or actually, you might want to say to them that this is not a great time to discuss this right now, and can we schedule a time to do it later? Now you might be thinking, but what about families when they're dropping their children off in the morning? How do I tell that to them? Well, it's as simple as actually saying to a parent, hey, I'm just engaging with the children right now and you have 100% of my attention a bit later on because I can't give that to you and it really is important that you have my attention. Can I get back to you in a minute while I just finish this? We need to respect the art of teaching as much as we need to respect people. And if you have serial offenders, people who just keep on popping in, keep on interrupting, chat to them. Talk to them, don't talk about them. And talk to them about what it means for you trying really hard to manage your time and getting through your stuff. So how do we keep distractions to a minimum? And there are many distractions that tend to happen that we need to try to eliminate or minimize. Here are some things to think about. Ask yourself or put something somewhere where you can remind yourself, maybe a little piece of paper or a little sign, should I be doing this right now? Don't get caught up doing things that you don't want to do or that you don't need to do. Here's a perfect example. If you're a director and you're cleaning your office, don't sit down and do it because you get caught up then flicking through those magazines. Stand up and do it. You'll get through it a lot quicker. Simple idea. Here's another one. Shut down your emails, whether you're an educator or you're a leader in the site. Shut down your emails, get through the task and get it done. Here's another one. Divert the phone to someone else in your campus if you need to, if you're trying to attend to something, or give them the phone so they can pick it up. It's called teamwork. Another thing, declutter your workspace, declutter the planning room, declutter your cupboards in your room or your desk. See, clutter is just misery to the mind and the soul. And actually, when there's clutter, it's been found that we're not as productive. We don't get through things because it distracts us. Clear space, clear mind, clear outcomes, clear focus. Find a quiet space if you need to. Find a quiet space to plan, to document, to work on the budget, to write up the menu. And turn off radios, turn off any noise in the background that stops you from concentrating. Now, I know others sometimes like to have that playing, but if we are working as a team, if we're working collaboratively, sitting at a planning desk or sitting in your office where there are others sharing that space and playing music because you like it could actually distract them. So ask them or tell people if it is distracting. Here's the other thing, the power of Dr. No. You can't be everything to everyone. You're not a superhero. And sometimes we have to learn how to say no without carrying guilt around it. And I know many people carry guilt if they say no. Sometimes we say yes at the expense of delivering a quality product to someone because we're overloading ourselves. When someone persists, repeat your position and say, I would really love to help, and under other circumstances I would, but right now, if I can give you insight into my workload, that's why I can't do this. But remember, you have the right to say no, but be polite to people. Be firm, but be clear. And sometimes, actually, you need to be brave and say no to your supervisor, your room leader, your area manager, whoever you report to. Why? Because you can't get that thing done on time and in quality. It might mean you engage in a conversation with them around priorities, remember? And we be diplomatic about it. I've got these 4 tasks to do. I'm finding it really hard to juggle the 5th task, which I'm very happy to take on board. But if you can assist me to manage these priorities, I'd be really appreciative. Now, learning to delegate is really important. Often people think delegation comes from the top down. No, we work in teams. Delegation could work amongst educators. Remember, other people don't give you the power of choice. You get to choose if you delegate things to your colleagues, to your team members, or whether you choose to take it on board and do it yourself. Now, ask yourself, do I feel like I'm working as part of a team? Because in a team, we share the load. We work together. It's not just one person carrying everything on behalf of everyone. And when we delegate, we need to be able to be very clear with our expectations about what needs to be done and who needs to do it. Remember, choose your choice. Choose the choices that work for your team and work for you. This is the capability you have available to you as a person. We don't want to erode our choices. We don't want to get to a point where we don't know how to make great decisions that deliver great outcomes on time. Delegation does take time to figure out. But remember, we work as a team. Now, not only does delegation assist in the management of our workload, it's actually an empowerment tool. It helps everyone in the workplace. For example, delegating a task to someone in your team may give them the opportunity to develop a skill that previously they never had the opportunity to. Delegation occurs vertically and laterally, downwards, upwards, and sidewards. And this is the lovely thing about delegation. It's not about giving away a task that you don't want to do to someone else because you dislike it. It's about managing workloads. It's about setting expectations and getting things done, better outcomes, and building team skills and self-esteem. So critical to the effective functioning of a campus. See, lateral delegation actually requires the involvement of the manager, the campus director, or the organizational leader who's responsible for the outcome of the team. So, delegation frees up your time so you've got more time to attend to other things, like being strategic and putting your time towards those things that are really important right here, right now. It helps develop your team and their skills, as we said earlier on. The other thing about delegation, it builds a culture of trust because you're saying to your colleagues you trust them to complete a task that was previously assigned to you. And you know, many people might thank you for actually having trust in them by giving them that task. It also makes the team more efficient because in fact what it does, it makes better use of everyone else's time, and as a result, the whole team gets better time and better use of their time. And it increases flexibility in your team. So, let's think about how we get this done. Prepare. Be very clear about the results that you want and the task you're handing over to people. No one can read your mind. So when you're delegating, ask yourself, what am I giving them? What is the task? What is the timeline? And what is the quality? Find the right person to give it to. Now, it may not be someone who's got all the skills, but someone who can develop the skills, which might mean you need to mentor them through part of the task. Define it clearly. Now, it doesn't mean telling them what exactly the end product is going to be, because you might want to give them some room for creativity. Confirm that they understand exactly what you've asked them to do. Be clear about that. Not being clear means you will be setting someone up to fail. Confirm their commitment, and that's really important. Are they saying yes because they want to do it? Are they saying yes because they think they have to say yes? And communicate the outcomes. Be very clear about this. And don't engage in reverse delegation where you give the task to someone, but then you take it back. That's not helpful. Ensure accountability. Accountability is the playground of freedom. This is about setting parameters, and this is where there are no surprises at the 11th hour because they tell you that they haven't done the task. So checking in with people is pretty important. So if you're delegating, for example, your room's contribution to the newsletter to a staff member who's never contributed, be clear with them, show them examples. How many words does it have to be? What is the writing style? What should they write about? When is it due for you? Would you want to edit it? Give it back to them. Being clear about all these things is really important. Let go of the task. You have to trust people. Don't give it to them and then micromanage them. That's frustrating for everyone. And appreciate and publicly acknowledge your colleagues. It's really important to do so. So, let's think about this. It might be a crisis, but you don't need to go into a crisis. There are many things that happen in life that are so unexpected. Now, we can get ourselves into a knot here and buy into the drama, or we can be really clear and know how to work through this stuff. Remain calm and be deliberately calm. Have a lot of optimism and courage. We need this when there is a crisis. Continue workflow practices and procedures, but adopt them and adapt them when needed. You might need to adopt a new one or adapt how you're doing something. Don't let things escalate. When we address things when they're small, it probably takes less energy and less time. The longer we leave it, the more time and energy it takes to actually rectify that issue. Deal with issues they appear. Don't pretend something isn't there when something is there that we need to attend to. And balance any new responsibility across your team. The other thing, pause. Pause to assess any change in practice. Observe how it's worked and update it if it's necessary. Remember, the standard that you walk past is the standard that you agree to. And this is really important. If we walk past a standard that's not okay, basically what we're saying to our colleagues in our classrooms or the colleagues that work in another room, this is okay. And if it's not okay, why would we say it's okay? Remember, it'll just sap our creativity and our time if we leave it unattended to. Demonstrate and be open to empathy. Someone might be in a crisis and they might need you to lean in and help them and understand that. And acknowledge the personal and the professional challenges for team members. So, what have we discussed and where does this leave us? Remember, priority management over time management. We cannot manage time, but we absolutely can assess what the priorities are and what we need to attend to first. You can learn to control your workflow. No one controls you except you and your workflow, and seek assistance if you need it. Practice mindfulness, be present, be there, and minimize any distractions that might be around your workplace. Delegation enables others to fly. It helps us get the work done. It's kind of like spreading the love amongst the team. Don't spend your energy about worrying about things that you don't need to worry about. Spend your energy worrying about the task at hand. Stop worrying about what has to be done and just get it done. In a crisis, be calm, be optimistic. That's what people need from you. Demonstrate and be open to empathy. Be realistic and kind to yourself. Remember, you control you. Time management, priority management is a skill we learn. It takes wisdom, practice, but believe in yourself. You can do it and your team can do it together. Open up, ask for help, and be super focused. Thanks for engaging in this webinar, and I hope you enjoy it.